Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of my Cedar Point Recreation Park. Today is the final day of Stage 5. We are going to be finishing up all of the rest of the buildings inside the park. It's pretty amazing how much ground we've covered in the last few episodes, but as of the end of today, there is no more red grid inside the park boundaries. There is still, of course, a lot of red grid outside the park boundaries for some buildings we'll make in the future. But inside the park, the first drafts of all these buildings are finally done. It's pretty exciting stuff. Starting with a couple buildings around the Lakeside Midway area. There's some staff buildings over here, and the Melt restaurant, and a mysterious white building with some overgrown ivy on it. I'm not sure what this building is. I plan to do some research to try to figure that out, but it looks pretty old, like it's been around a long time, and they never had to tear it down for any reason, and so it still stands to this day. It looks pretty cool, and I'm glad that they are able to keep some of these buildings around, some of these really old buildings, as they, grow and expand the park and refurbish things, that there's still some old things around. But yeah, like I said, around that we've got a pretty large building that houses a new Melt location. This has always been a sit-down restaurant. I actually ate here once, I think, when I was quite young. Don't remember what it used to be called. I think Joe Cool's or something like that. Another Snoopy-themed establishment. I'm also building a little bit next to it. There's a large white building that I am not 100% sure what's in there. I think it's part of a museum or some sort of exhibit area. It's been closed for a while. I didn't go in there on my last trip. And then that again merges into some other building whose function I don't really understand. There's going to be a lot of that going forward as we start some of the outside the park buildings. Aside from the hotel, there's just a lot of weird backlot stuff that I really don't know what it is. I tried to get what photos of these things I could, but there's only so much I actually know about them. But the rest of this building we're going to save for the next phase when we do the rest of the outside the park buildings. This first draft of this building isn't very good at all, especially the roof, so it was just kind of a placeholder / first draft, as I always say. And I'm planning on coming back and cleaning these up later. Aside from that, there's just a lot of miscellaneous buildings around the midway that we haven't done yet that I just need to get finished up. Couple shops along the main midway. There's a small kiosk next to the Pagoda gift shop where they just sell, I think, airbrush t-shirts and pretzels. Nothing too fancy, but for some reason I did really like the shape of the building they came up with for this one. Not sure why this one appeals to me so much, but for some reason the shape of the building that I wound up with at the end and the textures used for the coloring and everything, I quite liked. But yeah, it was pretty fun to do some of the detailing back here. I've been trying to put off doing too much detailing because if I need to move or rebuild any of these buildings, then doing all the detailing work is going to be wasted. All that effort, I'm just going to have to undo it and redo it. But there's a couple areas, like the little courtyard behind that mysterious white building in the staff area, that I know I'm not going to have to tweak later. So there's not really a whole lot of harm in adding in some extra little details in there. And it's also pretty nice just to come and kind of clean things up, do some little micro detailing. It's a part of the process I really enjoy and haven't gotten to do a whole lot of yet because we've been looking at so much macro level stuff. But I do really enjoy all the little fiddly bits, like just placing down some fences and placing down some bushes and tweaking some paths and making things look nice. It's a lot of fun. Aside from the main midway, there's a couple more buildings left on the Gemini midway to take care of. A couple bathrooms, which I actually just wound up copying and pasting a building I liked from earlier on. The bathroom I built next to the Scrambler. Turned out to be a pretty good design, if a simple one. And it looked pretty similar to a couple other bathrooms in the park, so figured it might as well just save myself a little bit of effort there. There are a couple buildings near the Magnum entrance that I didn't quite have enough room for, as some of the infrastructure I built for Top Thrill Dragster turned out to be a little bit too far up the midway. So I spent a little bit of time moving the queue back a bit and the very large building that goes around the launch part of the track. Moved all that back a few tiles so I could fit in a few more food stalls and things. Fortunately, there was plenty of room for that, and it helped make the area around the Top Thrill Dragster entrance look a little bit less spread out and empty, so that's nice. One of our last big restaurants we have to build here is Backbeat Q. I think that's how you pronounce it anyway. It's a very strangely named restaurant. I understand the name, but it's just weird to say it out loud. Next to the Magnum entrance. This one we definitely don't have enough room for. Due to the way that the Gemini layout is done to get those helixes in, they take up a little bit too much room on the midway, so everything on that midway is shifted down a bit. So Monster is a little bit too close to Magnum, meaning that we don't have the room that we wouldn't ordinarily need for the seating area next to Backbeat Cube. So we're missing some seating here, but there's enough room for a pretty basic building shape. And I'm okay with that. There's still enough room for a little bit of seating and some nice little details and things. So I think that turned out okay. Just across the midway from that, we have our final gift shop, which shares space with an ice cream and drink stall and the bathroom for Camp Snoopy. This one was fun to do. Behind the building, there is a little sculpture of a waterfall with Snoopy in a canoe going over top of it. So that one was fun to put together with some hacked scenery of the volcano piece and then a little canoe vehicle on top. I quite like the way it looks. I think it's very cute. And then to wrap things up, we have one more free throw game and then the Happy Fryer, the classic French fry and corn dog restaurant across from Gemini. I haven't eaten here in a while, but I always enjoy walking past it just because it looks so silly. And that's it. That's all the buildings. Every shop, every restaurant, and I believe all the maintenance stuff and ride stuff inside the park boundaries. After this, we're going to be moving on to some outside the park stuff, back lots, parking lots, the hotel, everything else we haven't covered yet. It's still a pretty significant chunk of work, but it does seem like we are getting kind of close to the end of the project. However, I am going to want to spend a considerable amount of time tweaking things, cleaning things up. As I've been saying in the last few episodes, these buildings are more like first drafts. And while I'm very pleased with some of the first drafts, there's definitely some that I am not as big a fan of, and I'm going to be taking some time to rework some of the buildings I'm not as happy with. And also to clean up a lot of the work on paths, fences. There's a few queues I haven't touched up yet, things like that. Lots and lots and lots of little detailing. And I think I'm going to do a lot of that off camera simply because it's not very exciting, doesn't really translate into good time-lapse footage. So I'll be doing phases 6 and 7 kind of in conjunction with each other. Phase 6 being the detailing and phase 7 being the outside the park buildings. Simply because phase 6 isn't really going to translate well to video. But yeah, still quite a lot of detailing work to do. I don't know how well it comes across in the time-lapse, but there's still quite a bit of empty space in the park where we need to do some foliage and things like that, in addition to all the building cleanup as I mentioned. And all that will come with time, so we'll get there here pretty soon. But I think that's going to do it for today. As always, if you've got any comments, questions, or suggestions, let me know. Thanks for watching.